Welcome to the Old Man of the Three Things with JJ Redick and the Dunker Spot, Nekias, Duncan, and Steve Jones. Fellas, I just realized on my drive over here this morning, this is the last Old Man and the Three Things of the regular season. It is the last one. It's been fun kicking it with you guys this year. This has been awesome.
I've really enjoyed it. I didn't know this was the last one. Wow. Really add some seriousness to this one. Got to kill it.
We got to kill it. I do have one announcement to make, unrelated to the Old Man of Three Things. I just want all the viewers of the Mind the Game podcast to know that I now have a nice coach's whiteboard. And I won't be drawing misshapen courts, half courts on white sheets of paper with a Sharpie marker. So very excited about this. Very excited about this.
Yeah, you shouldn't let them. Hey, that's old school. I like those courts. They had a feel to it. That's how it's supposed to do. You draw. You get a napkin. Get a napkin. Draw a play up. I got an idea. Let me try and preserve this. I respect it.
What was the thing that Steve Kerr is sitting at the airport, and I think it was with Bruce Frazier. They're sitting at the airport right after he got the job in Golden State, and he basically came up with their post-split offense using a charcuterie board.
I was going to say, you should have got deeper in the mud. You should have came with some napkins. Get some salt shakers on the screen. Like we did. Hey.
You're right. Just random objects on the table. Just
there you go.
Court mapping.
Legos next week.
All right, let's get into this. I want to start with the New York Knicks and Jalen Brunson. They came back and beat the Milwaukee Bucks yesterday. Brunson with another monster performance, 43 points. He's averaging 37.5 points against the Milwaukee Bucks this year in 5 games. If they have, maybe they have more than one kryptonite, but certainly Jalen Brunson is a kryptonite for the Milwaukee Bucks. Guys, let's just contextualize the Knicks right now. They're a scrappy group. They're led by one of the best players in the NBA, which we'll get to in a second. But overall, big picture with the New York Knicks, the announcement since the last time recorded, Julius Randle out for the season. Where do you see this group in terms of a Eastern Conference playoff contender? Let's for this time being, let's just take Boston out of the equation and look at the New York Knicks through the lens of the other 7 potential playoff teams.
I would say if we're removing Boston out of it, I think you could make an argument that this is still like the best team in the conference outside of Boston, just because of the defensive foundation that they built, because of what Jalen Brunson is doing, because of the movement they've been able to kind of build outside of the Brunson pick and roll package. And then you add in the level of versatile pieces that they have defensively, getting OG Anunoby back. I just tweeted this out earlier this morning. OG has now played 19 games with the Knicks, which kind of stinks with all the injuries, but he's played 19 games. The Knicks have flat out won his minutes in every single game that he has played. There's not been a 0. There's not been a minus. They win when he is on the court. And what he unlocks for them defensively, both just with the assignments that he can take on and some of the off-ball relief that he provides when they do want to ramp things up in front of him, he just changes their team. And so it does think that Julius Randle isn't coming back. I think that extra boost in creation, as annoyed as some people can get with the style of it sometimes, his rim pressure, his passing out of the post is important. They're going to miss that. But if you are able to build a base with more movement, if Jalen Brunson is continuing to knock down these level of pull-ups, and you have this strong of a defensive foundation, that's not a team you want to see in the Eastern Conference.
To balance out and bounce off what Nekias said, this team has an identity. They know who they are on both ends of the floor. Defensively, they're going to get after it. They're going to hound you. They're going to be active. Offensively, Jalen Brunson has been so good. And the one thing, as Nekias mentioned, the way that they've tried to involve Brunson in movement, just looping him over the top, getting him to the wing, having him involved in a stagger or a pin down, that's important for an offense that could stagnate. And the one thing I've been watching, as Brunson has been so good with the shiftiness, with the footwork, finding gaps, how are teams going to try and guard him in the playoffs? And he's played at such a level where you have to guard him with early help. And if you don't, those drives are there. He's leading the dance. Miami's throwing 3 bodies at him and trying to dig on every drive. We've seen teams put 2 on the ball against him in pick and roll. Harder shows, traps. And that should help the Knicks create an advantage they didn't have before. but are they going to be able to make the defense pay consistently? We've seen Dante DiVincenzo knock down shots. We've seen Josh Hart cut and be able to be a handoff hub. We've seen Hartenstein do a really good job on the short roll of being able to catch and make decisions and make plays. But they've been able to counter so much of what teams have tried to do to put Jalen Brunson in a box. You want to deny? Hey, that's fine. We'll hit Hartenstein at the elbow. We'll cut back door. We'll
Blind
keep
pig.
play.
Blind pig. It's blind pig.
He put a Twitter user reply on me. This is the mind of the game impact.
Somebody yesterday, the NBA tweeted out that Austin Reeves lob dunked to LeBron James on the slot cut.
Slot cut.
Slot cut. Yeah, everywhere. Slot cut. You know what? It's working.
But that, what you
go ahead. Sorry.
Oh no, I'll just say that's going to be the fun part of the playoffs. Is for all the questions that you may have about this team offensively, they're self-aware. They know who they are. They know where their bread's buttered. You see Bojan Bogdanovic starting to perk up at the right time by actually, driving the ball a little bit as opposed to just being a catch and shoot guy. So it's been fun to watch them kind of work through this sequence of the season.
Yeah. OG, by the way, when he's in the lineup, Knicks are 16-3. Jalen Brunson, I came across this tweet yesterday, and I thought it was interesting, and I apologize for not knowing how to say this person's last name. And you guys may know this person, but it's Chris Pershayanin. It's something like that. He's got a blue check. I apologize. There's just a lot of vowels.
I believe I know who you're talking about, though.
Okay. And anyways, so the tweet is Jalen Brunson is just ridiculous. He's a top 15 to 17 NBA player and often gets discussed like he's in the 30 to 40 range. Think people will be all cut up before the All-Star break next season. Usually takes like 1.5 seasons for media and fan bases to adjust on guys they didn't rush to crown early. I was thinking about that and sort of where Jalen Brunson is in the hierarchy, because there was a lot of, I wouldn't even describe it as like negative discourse, but there was a lot of discourse around Jalen as a 1A earlier in the season with some comments that Becky Hammond made that you can't win with a small player. And historically, I think there's some truth to that outside of Isaiah Thomas and Steph Curry in the modern era. But Jalen Brunson, I think, probably doesn't make first team All-NBA this year. He's got a pretty strong case to be second team All-NBA. And if you look at Basketball Reference, all their sort of individual advanced stats, like this is a top 10 to 12 player in the NBA this season. I think there's legitimate buzz around him maybe creeping in the top 5 of the MVP voting. He's been that good this year. He was phenomenal last year. He's been even better this year. And the thing that I love that both of you sort of got to was he has, along with Tibbs and that group, Sans Randall, they have figured out a counter for every coverage. And it's been phenomenal to watch. And I want to state clearly, like if you think Jalen Brunson is a top 30 player, you are vastly underestimating him. He's closer to that 10 to 15. And you could probably argue this season a little bit higher. He's been that good.
Yeah, I think as you brought up the award stuff a little bit earlier, like depending on how people gauge kind of the degree of difficulty with Jalen Brunson and all the injuries that the Knicks have dealt with overall, like I think he has an outside chance at finishing field. I think I would imagine we both have like a similar top 4, maybe not the same order, but a top 4 for all NBA. And I think that 5th spot is relatively open.
MVP,
yeah. So for MVP, like I would imagine that 5th spot is going to be relatively open. I wouldn't be surprised to see Brunson on a few ballots himself. But like just watching him continue to grow as a pull-up shooter has been a lot of fun since he's joined the New York Knicks. He's always been someone that can knock down shots, but him getting comfortable just pulling up against drop, taking deeper and deeper pull-up threes, and what that has opened up for him and the offense as a whole, it's just been a lot of fun. Like I am not someone that always had Brunson as like a top 15 talent, I was probably like mid, 20 to 25 range versus like the 30
You're
to 40
a Brunson
range.
hater. I know, I get it.
Oh, Brunson hater. No, but like as we talked about this year, the pull-up growth, the passing growth, something that Steve and I have talked about, like when he does see two on the ball, like what types of passes is he making? Like that's continued to grow post All-Star break. And defensively, like there are limitations with the size, but he has really worked on the showing recovers. If the Knicks try to scram him out of matchups after switches, like he's getting to the corner in timely fashion, like he's maximizing himself on both ends of the floor. And I think that's the best way. That's the best thing I can say about Jalen Brunson.
Steve, do you have anything to add to this?
Well, I think the biggest thing for me is the fact that Jalen Brunson has played so well that Tibbs actually wants to play smaller lineups says something to me. Now, some of that might be Josh Hart can guard a whole bunch of different positions,
Right.
But that willingness to open up space for him, you mentioned the counters, being able to make sure Dante DiVincenzo is one pass away or he's on the weak side. Those little moments, those little tweaks they do to try and ensure, okay, you want to go size and length against Jalen Brunson, put a wing on him, that's fine. That means you'll probably be in a drop. Jalen Brunson's going to make sure he sets you up, comes off the screen, takes the space, and gets to his spots. I think that's probably been the most important thing, to where even on the nights where he's maybe struggled shooting the ball, it hasn't necessarily felt like too many teams have been able to dictate terms to him and be able to take him away from leading the dance. And that's been such a big part of New York and why they are set up to potentially have a run. They're not going to be a fun team to deal with in the playoffs, especially with the Garden that excited.
Jalen Brunson, by the way, 4th in the NBA in scoring this year. I saw that come across my ticker last year, and I was like, oh, he's having a great year. And then I was like, oh, he's 4th in the NBA in scoring? He's behind Luka, Shea, and Giannis? 4th in the NBA in scoring for a high-volume player that is being asked to do all of this without essentially a real second option on this level of efficiency. There are times in the world, where we talk about great actors or great businesses. And sometimes those actors, businesses, shows, a car, let's say, they essentially become a legacy product, right? And it's understood that they are great and they've been great and there's a longevity to that. And then sometimes a new product comes along and the legacy product just isn't as good, and the new product is better. So when I bring up this, like, I could go down the list of guys and you'd be like, oh, there's no way he's better than so-and-so because this guy has 25 million stans shouting on the internet. So that matters. No, it doesn't. Jalen Brunson's probably better than that guy right now, today, this season. He's better. Just wanted to say that. All right, guys. We have, again, last week of the regular season, I believe all of the 10 play-in/playoffs spots are set in both conferences. Everybody that's not in the top 10 right now has been eliminated. There's obviously some wiggle room, obviously in the West and in the East, particularly in that sort of 6, 7, 8 slot. So we don't know who's going to be in the play-in, but as it stands today, on Monday, April 8th, with 1 week to go, the teams currently in the play-in, which team do you feel like has the best chance? We don't know matchups yet, but the best chance of a first-round upset. And you can argue this in a number of ways. You can even pick a matchup that you think they would have success with. Steve, I'm going to start with you because you seem very giddy about this question.
Well, I'm just happy to be here, excited to be here. I think I would say the Philadelphia 76ers with Joel Embiid back in tow. And it's been interesting to watch the return. Number one, I think Tyrese Maxey, very happy that Joel Embiid is back. And I think the reps that he had when Embiid was gone are going to pay off now because those would be probably the playoff coverages he would see. So now he's had more experience facing some more of that game plan type defense. He's got the chemistry with Embiid. You can get into more actions with him moving again. You can get back to the movement, to the handoffs to get more of your flow offensively. And also, Embiid is very, very good. Defensively, I think they have versatility. I think they have enough size to be able to add some switching, guard multiple positions. That's not a fun team to face in the first round if they are in the play-in. And I think when you add guys like Nick Batum, Kyle Lowry, who just know their assignment, they know exactly what they're supposed to do. I need to get the ball here. I need to defend. Kelly Oubre has given them a pop all year. So I just think that blend in the first round is not ideal. So I'm going to pick the Sixers.
Okay, I like it. I'll comment on that in a second. I want to give Nekias a chance here to provide us with his best chance of a play-in team getting an upset.
Oh man, so I, in typical Nekias fashion, thought way too deeply about this. Like I was trying to get like a full blown. Don't do me like this. But no, I was trying to get like a full blown ranking going, and I was like, okay, there are two trains of thoughts that I have here. Like one, who's just playing really well right now, and whose team have I enjoyed? Whose team that I think is dangerous? And then it's actually looking at what the play-in/playoff standings are right now. And while I would like to talk about, if the Pelicans do get healthier, like I feel like they are the best team of the play-in bunch in the West, and arguably just the best play-in team, period, right now. If they are the 17 and they face Denver, I don't think they would beat Denver. So it's like I feel better about the Pelicans as a team, but I feel a lot worse about their chances just because of who the matchup would be. Honestly, I also would have went with Philadelphia. And so now I'm just trying, I guess I need to go second in line just because Steve has already said Philadelphia and I don't want the dunker spot repeat here. The bit would be to say like the Celtics don't want to see Jalen Johnson or DeJounte Murray again after those back-to-back wins, but I'm not going to be shameless on this podcast. So I would just say the Heat are getting healthier. Tyler Hero is back. The Heat have been, I believe, a top 3 defense post All-Star break per cleaning the glass if you're removing garbage time. The Heat and Celtics have a lot of history. If I'm not going to choose Philadelphia, it's probably Miami as far as the best upset pick.
Okay. All right. Here's where it's interesting because you bring up the Pelicans. And when I first sort of looked last night and then again this morning, and I was thinking about it and looking at all the different potential first-round matchups, I had the same train of thought that you did, which is the Pelicans as a healthy team, they are a top 10 offense, top 10 defense. I think they've got a lot of pieces and versatility that helps you win a playoff series. Zion playing as well as he's played in his career. I just don't know what to make of the West. I really don't. And Minnesota's fucking good. OKC's hit a little rough patch here. They haven't had their 2 best players, right? For most of this season, they've been a top 5 offense and a top 5 defense. I think we all believe in Denver. So 2 of those 3 teams are the 1-2 seed. And do I feel comfortable picking against any of those teams? No, I don't. So my immediate thought was the Eastern Conference because of what's going on, particularly in that 2 spot with Milwaukee. Milwaukee, I think they're 1-6 in their last 7. And look, they've had guys in and out of the lineup. Middleton, of course, gets his tooth knocked out yesterday. They finally get the big 3 back healthy, and then that happens, right? I'm not going to say it's inexcusable because it happens a lot. But to lose to, I believe, the Grizzlies, the Wizards, and the Raptors, 3 straight games at this point in the season, it's shocking. It's shocking. So you have to look sort of at whoever ends up getting that 7 seed. And by the way, potentially could be the Indiana Pacers, who would feel more than comfortable playing the Milwaukee Bucks if that's what ends up being how the seedings play out. And you go through the iterations of matchups. Like Cleveland has 33 losses right now, and they finish with Memphis, Indiana, and Charlotte, right? They could easily – Orlando's got Milwaukee 2 more times. Milwaukee has Orlando 2 more times. The Knicks play some good teams. They play a couple teams they can beat or should beat. So I think they've got the Bulls twice, the Nets once, and I forget the other matchup, Boston tomorrow. So It's going to be fascinating. But I think it is that 7 spot in the East is the team. Look, we're going to get to Boston. That's going to be our third thing right here because it's going to lead us into that. But that 7 spot, particularly the Philadelphia 76ers, because they go into a playoff series with one of the 3 to 5 best players in the world. And Maxey is awesome. I think guys know their role. You certainly have faith in Nick Nurse in a playoff series to come up with game plans, to make adjustments. Buddy Hield, after a slow start, has shot better lately. He's up to 38% from 3 in a Philadelphia uniform. I like Philadelphia. To answer the question, I like Philadelphia. I still don't love the Miami Heat offense. At no point in time this season have I said, "Oh, I love this offense." Right? I haven't. It hasn't been consistent at all. Mm-hmm. Defense is great. What concerns do you have with the Boston Celtics?
Nekias, do you want to get yours off?
Yeah, I can go quickly on Boston. I would say first, concern is probably too strong for me just because of how dominant they've been on both ends of the floor this year. If anything, it's an old button to press. It's just looking at what the late game process is going to be. I feel better about, generally feel better about what they are getting into offensively. It's now solely a tempo deal for me versus tempo and, wow, this is really stagnant. So that's a bonus. But I will toss you a question that I tossed Steve on our last episode, the dunker spot. Is Joe Mazzulla just kind of holding the Kristaps card as a trump card for their late game offense? Because I updated the numbers for over the weekend. 200 post-up possessions for Kristaps Porzingis. 1.31 points per possession on any trip featuring a Kristaps post-up, which is not just tops in the league. It is tops in the league with a bullet among guys that have posted up at least 100 times. Scotty Barnes is second, Jokic is third. And there's a gap there. Of the 200 post-ups that Kristaps has logged this year, 7 of them have come in the clutch. And the Celtics have 13 points on those 7 post-ups, which is absurd. And so I just kind of wonder at what point does the Kristaps involvement, even if it isn't a post-up, I looked it up this morning, he's set 43 on-ball screens in the clutch this year. That is 26th in the league. And among actual Celtics pick-and-roll pairings, his top one is with Jason Tatum, and that's 3rd on the team.
His top one in the clutch.
Yeah. In the clutch minutes, yeah.
Yeah.
So, even then...
The Derek White-Porzingis duo, I believe, of high-volume duos is in the top 5 in the NBA this year in terms of points per direct pick.
Yes, the White Porzingis one overall this year has been elite. And even in clutch situations. Do you want to guess how many Derek White, Kristaps Porzingis pick and rolls we've gotten in the clutch this year? We've got 9.
9 of you said 43? 43 total?
43
picks?
Total screen set by Kristaps in the clutch.
Oh, interesting.
Only 9 of them have been set for Derek White. And that pick and roll pairing, again, overall this year has been one of, if not the best in the NBA.
You're theorizing, speculating that Mazzulla's maybe saving some stuff for the playoffs.
I think
that's fair. I think I had a coach tell me earlier this year. He was like, we were talking about ATO stuff and ATO execution. And he's like, I feel like my guys have been shitty in ATOs. And I'm like, you guys are number 1 in the NBA in ATOs. And he's like, what's wild is I've got 50 or 60 of them I save for the playoffs. We just practice them starting mid-March, right? So, whether it is the late game switching, which I think there was more to that than just the idea that he was tinkering with something. There was some, I'm talking about the Atlanta game. Mm-hmm. Whether it's that or the zone stuff that they just randomly busted out for 6 weeks in January to mid-February, at volume, right? They're still playing it, but at a significant volume. They've really started to peel switch now. If there's a double side and the ball handler's coming to the strong side in a high pick and roll, okay. Here we go. I don't have a fucking marker. I was going to draw up a peel switch on this just so we could get some mind the game stuff in here. I don't have a Dry erase marker.
Extreme infographic voice.
Yeah.
A pill switch is when.
Oh man, so good. But anyways, I think this is what a lot of coaches do, is they tinker and they save. You know, if you look at the late game stuff, it has been overall good, right? I think they've been somewhere in that 5 to 7 range in terms of offensive rating in the clutch most of the season. I don't have it updated today in front of me, but you know, the concern I think is Tatum in the regular season in the clutch has not shot well.
Mhm.
And I think some of the stagnation comes when it's just about him matchup hunting, right? So I like that you bring up the tempo piece versus just what they're trying to get in. Because I'm fine. He's going to make a good decision. I trust Jason Tatum to make a good decision. He obviously can make shots. He's 13 of 27 in the clutch in the playoffs the last 2 seasons, 5 of 11 from 3 in the clutch the last 2 playoff runs. Like he's capable of making shots. He's capable of being a clutch player. It's more about the tempo. If it comes down and it's all of a sudden, all right, we finally got the matchup and he's got 4.6 seconds. I don't love that. You know, but if you're getting to multiple things and all of a sudden he's got the ball, maybe it's on the move, maybe it's right at that foul line elbow area, and you've got 9-10 seconds. God, you're going to create a good shot. You're going to create a good shot in that scenario. And by the way, I'll say this too: like they can go. Like I don't think Joe is this stubborn guy. Like I think they can go to their empty side pick and roll with Derek White and Kristaps Porzingis at any given time and go through and cycle through all their options. They can go what I call V2. Some people call it Horns 2. They can go to that with any number of Jalen Brown, Porzingis, Tatum, White, Drew Holiday. If Horford's in the game for defensive reasons, he can be spotted up in the corner. They can go to that V2 and get into their screening game and get behind the defense versus a favorable matchup, cause an overreaction. They can go to that stuff. I want to say one thing about the Celtics because, again, I've said this maybe once on this podcast before. I want to say it again because we've got a week left. For everyone that is like, this team can't get over the hump or show me in the playoffs, like that's fine. And I'm not saying it's invalid because the core group of Tatum and Brown and White the last 2 postseasons, like they've been there. Horford's been there. This is a different team. This is a different team with Porzingis, Drew Holiday, and also Peyton Pritchard and Sam Hauser playing significant roles off the bench, meaningful roles off the bench. And you've got complete buy-in from every single guy. And it's interesting because I'm like, Drew obviously had to take the biggest step back offensively. Okay, then he's having his best shooting season of his career, right? You brought up the Kristaps numbers. Like Kristaps, for the second straight year now, in terms of rim defense, is having the best defensive season of his career. Jalen Brown, probably having the best defensive season of his career. Derek White, of course, is having a career year. Tatum, despite a little dip in points per game, whatever, to me, he's having the best season of his career. His playmaking, limiting the turnovers, his shooting efficiency, his shots off the dribble since January 1st in terms of pull-up jumpers. So whatever you want to say, the narrative piece on last year's playoffs or game 4 of the 2022 finals, like I get it. It's fair. Just keep in mind, this is a different team. This is a different team. Is that wrong?
No, they're very different. And I think you've seen that in this regular season where they've done a lot of the work to prepare for the playoffs. And I think the problem for some is that the same issue pops up with the late game execution. I like that both of y'all mentioned the tempo. Just look at the clock. If they start with 14 on the clock, they're in trouble. I think when it comes to Boston, you look at what they've done with Porzingis, right? Defensively. You mentioned the peel switching. You mentioned they've tried different things. They've put him on non-shooters. They've brought him to the level. They've had him mix in the switching. He's switched off ball, scram switches as far as, hey, they're trying to put me in action. JB, Jason Tatum, you take that matchup, you switch. That stuff is going to be fun to see in the playoffs. So when you mention, hey, what's a weakness potentially, it gets real nitpicky. But can a team hit Porzingis in a way to where Boston's defense doesn't feel that same comfort? Hard to say because you also have Drew Holiday and Derek White, who are both good on ball and off ball, so they can protect them. But does the shooting from Drew and Derek White slip just a little bit? Does that change how teams maybe guard? Is that a help point? Can a team get them in the mud and switch to a degree to where we don't feel that weight of Boston's lineup? Because as JJ mentioned, that's been the most fun part. You don't know if Drew's going to be a screener, if he's going to be space, if he's going to handle the ball. When they go side to side and they have that different optionality, they can roll through different things. They are really tough. If you can take that off the table, now can you get Boston in a scenario where ball's a little sticky? We're dictating terms a little bit. Tempo slows down. We feel better about our defense. That's probably the only way my mind can go as far as a weakness goes, because they've done the work to be this team.
Can I pose a very quick question as we are now, I guess we're searching for Boston weaknesses? With the obvious caveat that the Celtics could just go they could just go to the Aces and just go with 6 in the rotation if they want to. Do we have any kind of question marks about Peyton Pritchard, Sam Hauser, less so Al Horford, but just their top 3 off the bench? Is that something teams could potentially poke at? You win the non-Tatum minutes.
I don't have as many concerns. They're going to be put in action in the playoffs, but how long is their stint going to be and who else is on the floor? And is it something they haven't seen before during the regular season? I don't know if it's that different. And because of the playoffs, if it is a scenario where this is going, into the liability zone or whatever, they can pivot pretty quickly. But I think they felt enough comfort to have Sam Hauser guard certain matchups or switch certain matchups and try and see if maybe that's something. I know Boston fans have always told me, we want that. I'm always like, I don't know if you really want that matchup, but I understand your point. So I'm not as concerned with the bench minutes because you're going to see more of the starters and they're going to have more of that integration. They work to kind of protect them to a degree.
I agree with Steve on that. That I'm not going to say it's not going to be an issue at one point where one of those guys gets targeted and they score a couple buckets. But they both those guys defensively have competed. I think they've held their own. And whenever I call a Boston game and those 2 guys check in, it's always like, okay, but you still have Al Horford, Derek White, and Drew on the floor. Or you still have Jalen Brown, Derek White, and Porzingis on the floor. It feels like there's always enough protection in some way that it's not going to be an issue where these guys aren't playing 12-minute stints with a set lineup either. That's not. It's a great question, Nekias, but I would say historically, right, before teams 10 years ago really started staggering starter minutes and staggering bench, there was a lot of chatter about this team's bench. When I played in Orlando in the playoffs, there were times we would go out and it'd be me. White Chocolate, Ryan Anderson, Marcin Gortat, name your 5th guy, whoever it was off the bench, on the wing. We would play all bench lineups. I feel like that just doesn't happen. So there's the level of protection. And by the way, those guys are fucking good. They're good. I mentioned all those other guys having career years. Those 2 guys are having career years too.
That's right. And this is why I prefaced with, since we are searching for a weakness, I've enjoyed.
No, I think it's a valid question. All right. Guys, always fun. Wait, you had one more thing to add. I love it.
Oh, yeah. Since it's just the last old man of 3 things, I could just ask one question. Hey, JJ, how do you feel about all bench lineups?
Right now?
Yeah.
In today's NBA?
Yeah, in today's NBA. How do you feel about it?
They should never happen.
Lost!
They should never happen. Why would you do that? I just don't. Why? You thought I was going to say yes? That I love it?
No, it was just. I thought
you
were
don't know
gonna
what
say
you
no.
just did to the dunker spot. You don't know what you've done. You don't know what you've done.
All right, guys. Well, you guys have
Mind
fun on the
your
dunker
rotation.
spot later today, recording that. Appreciate you guys. Always fun.
Appreciate you, JJ.